Hi everybody, it's Beth, and today I'm making a pumpkin shelf sitter. I grabbed one of these pumpkin hanging signs from Dollar Tree, some different style ribbon and raffia, a self-adhesive wall tile from Dollar Tree. These were also from Dollar Tree, these little hangers, they're leather, they say thankful and blessed, Spanish moss, 9 tumbling blocks, chalk paint in sage and white, hot glue. I also used burnt umber acrylic paint and tacky glue. The first thing I did was opened up the wall tile and painted it with the sage chalk paint. I did 2 coats, trying to make sure to get into all of those grooves. So once it was all dry, after I did the 2 coats, I kept it on the sticky part and traced out the pumpkin. And I'm not sure if I got a defective one or something. I've never used these before, but as soon as I cut the pumpkin out, it just fell right off the sticker part. There was no stickiness whatsoever. So that's why I ended up using the tacky glue. But after I did that and cut the pumpkin out, I removed this little grateful word from the front of it and then peeled off all of the paper, which it was a lot easier than I was expecting. It just all pulled right off. So originally I had planned on just using the self-adhesive part of this to attach it, but it just pulled right off of there and no stickiness whatsoever. So I ended up just putting some tacky glue on the front of the pumpkin and brushing it all over the entire thing, everything except the stem. And then just placed the wall tile I had cut out right on top of there, and it stuck nicely. And next I took some white chalk paint and just dry brushed it all over the entire front of the pumpkin, trying to get most of those raised parts so they popped a little bit. And then I took the burnt umber acrylic paint and painted the stem, and I did do 2 coats on that. Once that was done, I dry brushed with the white chalk paint 3 little lines on the stem, just kind of curved a little bit, and then took my finger to kind of blend it in. Next, I just used some hot glue to glue together the tumbling blocks. I did 2 sets of 4. I originally had 10 blocks set aside, but I didn't end up needing that many. I only ended up needing 9. So you'll have 2 sets of 4 and then 1 just left over. So what I was doing was making a stand, and it was kind of hard to measure the end pieces here. I had set the pumpkin in between the blocks and then measured out the side to see how long I needed that tumbling block to be for the sides. And it ended up being just shy of 1 inch, and it ended up being exactly half of the tumbling block that I needed for each side. So I only ended up needing that 1 extra one. And then I just used my miter shears to cut it in half. And then sanded the ends that I had cut. And then I painted all of the tumbling blocks with the white chalk paint. I covered them entirely, doing 2 coats. And next I had to make my bow. So I just gathered each piece of ribbon in the center, pinching it, and then kind of crisscrossing them in my hand and then holding them all together as I went along, using different styles and raffia throughout the whole thing until it was nice and full. And then I attached the whole thing together with a zip tie. You can use twine if you'd like. I just had the zip tie on hand, so I just used that and pulled it nice and tight, fluffed out the bow, trimmed up any pieces that were too long or too short, and then trimmed up the zip tie on the back. And then next I took this little leather hangers. I used the pumpkin one that said blessed, and I just held it up to where I wanted it to be hanging down and trimmed it and hot glued it. And then hot glued the bow right on top of that. And next I had to put my little stand together with the pumpkin on it. So I held the bottom of the pumpkin up to the wider side of the blocks, the 4 I had set together, traced out a line to make sure to put the hot glue in the right spot, placed down the bottom of the pumpkin, making sure that the bottom of the pumpkin did not go over the tumbling blocks or else it wouldn't sit right. And then I did the same thing for the front. Just hot glued in those same spots on the front and placed those tumbling blocks with the wide side facing the pumpkin and facing out, and hot glued that down. And then once that was dry, I had to do my ends. So those 2 little half tumbling blocks, I hot glued those on either end. And then the last thing I did was took the Spanish moss and hot glued it on the very top of the stand, bottom of the pumpkin, just right in the front, and then on the ends a little bit, just so it was covering the entire top of that stand. And here it is all finished. I absolutely love this project. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.